Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Yak Gadget, for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com. Eastport Marina, on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake, for all your lodging, kayaking, and fishing needs. Go to eastport.info. Now let's get this show started.
Welcome back to the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment on the Paddle and Fin Podcast. I am your host, Sean Lavery. For those of you watching on YouTube, no, I'm not stoned. I went to the eye doctor today and my eyes are still dilated. So bear with me if I have to mess with the controls on StreamYard at all, because I can't see what I'm doing. I'm kind of flying blind here. But anyway, guys, thanks again for tuning in and hanging out with us tonight. Tonight's special guest I was introduced to by Brad Hicks. And he said that he thought he would be a great guest to have on. So I'm excited to welcome Mr. Matt Good to the show. Welcome to the new show, Matt.
What's up?
Not much, man. Yeah. So how long have you known Brad?
I know a friend that knows him, and I've seen him on social media. We talk back and forth about, various different kayak accessories and things like that. Probably 2 or 3 years, roughly.
Okay. Brad definitely, his social media game is strong. I got to give him props. Mine is so weak compared to his, and definitely somebody I could definitely learn a lot from. So
those fish releases he does is outstanding, man.
I love his slow-mo releases. Yeah, those are pretty cool. So thanks for coming on the show tonight, man. Welcome. And I guess for the folks who don't know you, including myself, why don't you let them know who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, my name is Matt Good. I'm from Dayton, Ohio, born and raised. I've been fishing since I was 6 years old, man. My dad used to take me fishing all the time back in the day. Granted, it was for catfish, but eventually, I just got into smallmouth fishing, and it kind of just took off from there. I mean, it's just a huge passion of mine. It's just really super awesome to get out there, be alone or with a buddy or something like that, and just enjoy the great outdoors. And heck, if you catch a 18.5-inch smallmouth, it makes it all worth it.
Absolutely, man. I totally agree with that. So what type of fishing do you do most of? Are you a kayak fisher or a fisherman or?
Yeah, I've been kayak fishing for probably 4 or 5 years now. I was bank fishing the rivers, little gravel pits, little farm ponds and things like that. And I did a lot of wading because I grew up around the Great Miami River, and around the Dayton area, there's like 5 different rivers all within a close proximity. So, I mean, it's just endless amounts of fishing that you could do around here. It's amazing.
That's cool. Until I started listening to Paddle and Fin, I listened before I became a host, and I really didn't realize, that Ohio had that much good fishing. It's not something you generally hear of, when you think of like, Florida and Texas and, those kind of places. But, after listening to Brad talk and the other guys from Paddle and Fin that are from Ohio and around that area, I'm like, it really does sound like a pretty cool place to fish. And
yeah, it's really awesome. Usually people think of Ohio smallmouth fishing as just like strictly Lake Erie.
Right.
Man, there's some huge smallies in these rivers around here, man.
That's cool, man. So would you say that's where you target mostly, or are you do you have lakes and stuff where you target largemouth, or how's your breakdown? Is it mostly smallie fishing for you?
Mostly smallie fishing, unless the rivers are blown out, which that happens a lot around here.
I have heard Brad say that a lot. So
I mean, these water levels rise like so fast, and I just always pay attention to the gauges and stuff because you got to be safe out there. But yeah, generally just banging the banks over on the rivers and stuff, and just got into kayak fishing after watching a couple videos on YouTube, man. There's these boys down in Texas, man, slaying big old largemouth on big old swim baits and stuff. It just got me pumped. They were recording their stuff. I'm like, I want to do that, man. That sounds like a whole bunch of fun.
And what kind of kayak are you fishing out of now, or what'd you start in, and have you progressed at all? Or
Oh God, buy nice or buy thrice in my experience, man. I started off with a 12-foot Eagle Talon. It was horrible, man. The seat there was no elevation in the seat, and the scupper plugs were right under your butt, so you're guaranteed getting your butt wet every time. Not stable at all. Within 4 months, I upgraded to a Vibe Seaghost 110. I've had that for 3.5, 4 years, and I beat the crap out of that on these rivers, man. Just smashing boulders. It's done me pretty good, man. And that's my river kayak. And then last year I bought a Bonafide SS 127 specifically for lakes, because I want to get into more lake fishing. It's just something that's really interesting, but primarily rivers all the way, man.
okay, and so you're pretty much paddle, or do you use a motor at all?
I got a paddle on my for my river kayak for the Vibe Seaghost, and I recently got a Minn Kota iPilot trolling motor for the
Nice.
Bonafide. I've only taken it out once, but man, I'm in love with it already. It's got the spot lock on it. I just sit there, don't have to fight the wind or anything like that. It's amazing.
Oh man, I'm jealous. I've read so much about spot lock, and it sounds pretty much, you know, perfect. Like I can't imagine just being able to effortlessly stay in one place, you know.
It's really fun until you're going through a spot that has a lot of logs, and you just run into it. It jars you forward, scares the crap out of you.
Then you're making sure it's okay and you didn't bust it all up or anything. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, oh no, I just got this. It can't be broken already. What's the warranty on these things? Never mind. I ruined that because I got a 54-inch shaft on it. I couldn't get the 36 or the 48, and I just had to cut it anyway, man. So it's already ruined. Oh well.
Oh, I know that feeling, man. I have a Hobie Outback, and I probably have had it for 2 years now. And I remember I bought it. I went to pick it up, brought it home in the back of the truck, and I asked my wife to help me unload it. And she wasn't prepared for how heavy it was, because she thought it would be lighter, and she dropped it right on the rudder.
Ooh,
and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what did you do? You know, this is brand new." Now, luckily, nothing bad happened, and you know, everything was fine. But I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's brand new." So, well, cool, man. I know that you have a bunch of different things going on. I watched a bunch of your videos after Brad sent them over, or you actually sent me some too. And so I got lots of cool topics I think that we can talk about tonight. You know, how did you get started doing your social media? Just more to, you know, put yourself out there, or just kind of having fun? Or
mostly it's for fun, because like I'm a creative individual. I'm into music editing and audio production, graphic arts and stuff like that. I'm like, how hard would it be to learn how to use a GoPro and edit it and hopefully make some cool videos to kind of share the information that I've got over fishing the rivers for the last, I don't know, since I don't even know how long. No, I'm not going to do the math. Yeah, it's just a passion project of mine. It seems like a fun thing to do, to share your experiences. And one of the things I like the most about it, I know this might sound weird, but I like watching my own videos because I can learn from them. You know, like football players watch their own videos, see what they did right and what they did wrong. But you could go back to an episode and I could be like, there was this rock over here with this overhanging branch right here, and a little point that comes off with the grass. I'm like, I know where that is right there. And I could go back there and I could catch another fish. Hopefully. There was this one time I'm like, this was right around the area I caught the big smallie last time. Boom, I hooked one right there.
wow.
Like, it wasn't a big one or anything, but it was still pretty cool to go back there and kind of revisit those areas and hopefully do pretty well. Yeah.
I know that's one thing that I am totally guilty of, expecting the same spot to produce the same way every time you visit. Because there's places where I fish and I'm like, I got to go over and cast there at least once, because that's where I caught that one big one that one time.
Yeah.
You know, and so you know, sometimes you're right. Sometimes it does work out, and not all the time, but you know, it's definitely worth at least trying. So
there's one spot I'm going back to. I missed a 4-pounder. It was at the end of a trip. I caught a lot of fish, but they were all dinks. I was throwing this rat wake bait for the first time, and then as soon as it hit the water, I cranked it once. Big old largemouth in the river came up and slammed it, reeled it down. He got within probably 10 feet, boom, hook came off, man. Jumped out of the water. I was like, no.
Heartbreaker.
Yeah, heartbreaker for sure, dude.
Cool, man. So, and I know some of the videos I watched were you painting lures as well. That looked really cool. That's something I wanted to, just kind of pick your brain a little bit about, like how you got into that, and then kind of what it takes to get into that. Like say somebody's looking at that and thinking, hey, that seems like something I might want to try. I have a little artistic flair to me. Now, this is not me talking. I'm not super artistic, but for those folks out there that are, I could, mess around. I probably wouldn't make anything near as nice as what you did, but
oh, thank you, man.
Some of the baits that you do are, beautiful, and it's really neat. Like all the techniques that you use to, do the different patterns and stuff. So, what got you into that?
Well, like anything, I watched some YouTube videos. I'm like, I see that, I want to learn how to do that, and then I just try my best to get good at it. I've only been painting for probably 4 or 5 months. It's really not as complicated as it seems, but you do have to experiment a little bit. Like there's when you're using the airbrush, you have to adjust the PSI for certain things. Like if you're doing stencil work with like scales or fins or any sort of bluegill pattern, you just have to bump it down to like 15 or 20. And then if you're doing like your base coat or spraying a lot of paint at once, you bump it up to 25, 30, something along those lines. But it doesn't take that much money to get into it, but there are so many small things you have to consider. I mean, Hobby Lobby is your best friend when if you're ever considering lure painting. You could probably get everything you need from Hobby Lobby. So like starting off, you need an airbrush kit. Like I got the Iwata Eclipse. It's probably $150 or something like that. I figured I'd buy nice or buy thrice like I did for my kayaks. You need a small air compressor. That's like $80. And where it starts to get overwhelming is the sheer amount of different colors you could choose, man. I mean, there's color shifting things like moon dust and whatever else that has some color shifting elements in it. They sell a whole bunch of packs again at Hobby Lobby, or you could buy them individual. You got your opaque colors, you got your transparent colors. I mean, it's just, there's a lot that goes into it. And trust me, I probably painted for 2 or 3 months and ruined probably $100 worth of just blank baits just to kind of figure it out as I go. But regarding like the small things, you need like lure holders, those little helping hands, painter's tape, clear coat, epoxy, like embroidery hoops, mesh nets. Like I've made things, mesh nets out of mosquito, like a mosquito head net. I had an extra. It has it has a fantastic small scale pattern. I'm like, why not use it? It works, man. Then you got tiny items like paper clips to hang your baits from, card stock for cutting out your own stencils. Like they sell a lot of stencils. They even got cool things like 3D printed stencils that fit on top of your bait. So all you have to do is clip it on, spray it. That's it.
Wow.
They sell a whole bunch of different stencil kits for bluegills, crappies. I mean, it's never ending, man.
Interesting. I never even would have thought of that Hobby Lobby would have something like that. I mean, that's cool.
Absolutely, man. It's fun, dude. It's something I could do in the winter time after deer hunting season's over and right before spring fishing begins. It's just a cool way to pass the time.
That's definitely something I'm going to look into, because I feel like that would be an excellent, because I find myself, if I'm sitting at home and I'm thinking about fishing, usually I'm shopping, and that's probably not a great thing. I burn through so much freaking money in the off season just, because all I can do is be like, oh, well, look at that. That looks cool. I'm going to go buy that. So maybe if I could keep myself busy with something like that and, have some time to invest and, get pretty good at it, I think that would be pretty cool. Where do you get your blanks from? Like your lures?
I like a lot of the stuff from Sugar Tit Customs. I've had probably 100 baits from them, and I tested them all because like one of the mistakes I made is I got cheap blanks from a different place. I've heard plenty of horror stories about the awesome looking baits on Amazon. Just don't do yourself a favor and don't get them. But Anyway, I got some cheap ones, and you're supposed to dunk them in water before you paint them, see if they leak, and half of them leak, man. So I'm
that sucks.
Started doing research and just found out that Sugar Tip Customs is an awesome bait company. They send you, like, if you buy a fair amount of baits, they'll even throw in a free one as a gift. Like, hey, man, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Timely shipping. They've never messed up my order. All their baits are quality. I haven't put them quite to the test yet. I haven't used them to catch fish yet because I just started getting into the bait making thing over this winter. But I'm sure they're going to do fine, man.
Cool.
And plus, if I lose one or 5 of them, I got 50 more. I could just paint up in an hour or 2, you know?
Well, and heck, I mean, if you find a color that works, I mean, it's so easy then for you to be like, oh, you know, I'm just going to mass produce that for myself, or, you know, who knows where it's going to grow from there. But do those blanks come with hooks, or do you have to do that, like the split rings and hooks and all that?
You got to buy your own hooks and split rings, man. And that's one of the cool things, because, like, in the past, I've never changed them.
Oh, same here, right?
Yeah. And also in the past, I've lost fish. So I guess I blame myself more so than the gear. But now I'm just getting into the point to where I want quality gear, you know. So I got owner hyper wire split rings. I got various different treble hooks. Like, there's some ones that Mega Bass makes with the barb on the outside, which is pretty sweet. So I've been throwing those on my jerk baits. And then what's the other one I got? Gamakatsu EWG hooks, wide gap hooks. And I'm hoping they produce. The only thing I guess I'm worried about with smallie fishing is because sometimes they like to come up and just slam the bait. And with those EWGs, from what I heard, they don't always hook up. But we'll see, man. We'll see, man.
Yeah. Again, it's a learning process with everything. You've taken the time to learn how to paint, so I'm sure that's just going to be part of the process as well, figuring out which hooks work best and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
And I know, like, I saw swim baits. What other kind of baits have you been making, you know?
So I got some that are like DT10 knockoffs, and some 2.5 square bills that I got. I got a ton of 110 jerk baits as well. I've been painting up a lot of those. And recently I got a couple new baits that I'm super excited, because I really don't see a lot of people throwing these baits, and I kind of like to do the opposite of what everybody else does. So there's there's a speed wake bait that I bought, and it looks just like the one from 6th Sense. It's like, I think it's 4 inches, 4 or 4.5 inches. And then I got those 4.5 glide baits, those angry glide baits. I tested those out. Didn't catch any on the first trip, but they worked fantastic as far as the action. And I got some big, huge swim baits. Not huge, I guess, compared to the ones they use, you know, in California or Texas and Florida. But you got your river to sea S-wavers, 6-inch swim baits. I'm looking forward to using those too, man. It's just zero or hero, all or nothing. You go out there, you throw that thing all day. You might get one, you might get a couple follows. Hopefully you get a PB out of it. That's my goal, man. I want to keep consistently beating my PBs every year. That's just a side goal of mine.
Right. So what are your PBs right now?
Smallmouth, might laugh, but it's unofficial. But I'm pretty good at guesstimating. Here's one of those fish stories where it's this big, right? Now, I'm guessing it was at least 20 inches. You know, I'm going to measure them and record them more often, but fairly often I'll catch an 18 or a 19. The biggest I've ever measured is a 19.5.
Okay.
Smallmouth, at least. My biggest largemouth, I don't consider it as really counting, because 1, I was in a guided trip down in Florida, and 2, I was using live baits, live shiners, but it was 6.5 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
Still a big bass.
Oh yeah.
But I consider my real PB, my Ohio PB largemouth, a 5 pound, 1 ounce.
Okay. Cool. No, those are some nice fish, but definitely something to chase after, trying to beat. So
yes, sir.
Cool, man. I was trying to think. I was going to ask you particularly about the glide baits, because I think that's what I saw, the video that you sent me, the painting video. And I was curious, like, I was actually just talking to a guy. We went fishing on a reservoir here by us that was still, water temperatures are, hovering right around 40 degrees. And I threw a balsa crankbait most of the day, ended up getting one fish. And the buddy I went with got blanked. When we got back to the ramp, there was some guys getting off the water, and they're like, "Oh, we caught 4." And I was like, "Oh, what were you using?" And they said, an S waiver. I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about throwing that." But that got us talking. The buddy I went with and he was like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna throw that the next time I go out there." And I was asking him how he throws it, and I thought I remembered from watching like Tactical Bassin and stuff that it's more of just like you want it just to swim and then swim and then swim.
Yep.
And he was saying, no, I'm gonna keep burning it, not burning it, but moving it fast enough so it. What's your preferred way of throwing that?
I guess it depends on the bait itself. Some of them have a really wide glide, and you just keep your rod tip down and you crank it just enough to initiate that motion to where it starts to curve outwards. And then right when it's at its peak, you hit the reel again just a little bit and it'll just glide the other way. So you just kind of let it cruise around. That's one way. That's the way a lot of people use the big swim baits. But these little ones that I found is just a super slow retrieve. So you just use a lower gear ratio. Like I got a new Shimano SLX DC, and it's a 6:3:1 gear ratio specifically for cranking. I got it on a new Dobbins Fury cranking rod. Just tested that out. It works great so far. But essentially all you do is just reel it really slow, just really slow. And then it just kind of waves side to side. This one that I made isn't like a super wide glide, but it's just more or less like a side to side motion. And it's, I wish they would make them suspend. This one in particular is a slow sink, and it'll work really well in, I don't know, probably anywhere from a foot to 5 feet of water. You just crank it really super slow and hope to God a big old smallmouth smashes it.
Yeah, no, that's something I didn't think about throwing in the rivers around here. Just because I always thought of like a big bait like that, and especially one that would be sinking somewhat fast. I live right by the Susquehanna, and so it's shallow more often than not. And I was like, well, that's going to get snagged up all the time. But you're definitely not the first person who's told me to try using them. So it's definitely something on my list that I'm going to try this year. Because last year I kind of shied away from it just because I was like, I don't think that's going to work in my environment. But I've heard that now more times than not. So I'm like, maybe I got to try that and just see what kind of big smallie I can get to crush that. So
like 2 years ago, it was early April. I decided to throw a bigger 6-inch soft plastic swim bait, a little creeper.
Yep.
It's a what is it called? A little all-American trash fish. And I'm thinking, because I know the forage in this specific small creek, that this will be dynamite, right? So they have a whole bunch of creek chubs 6 inches, and I know smallmouth devour them. And I was fishing with a guy named Matt from Matt's Fishing Mission, and I took him out for the first time to this really beautiful little creek. And within 10 minutes, I hooked into probably 17 or 18. And on the very second cast in this deep little pool, right outside of this riffle, boom, back to back, I got another 17-inch smallmouth.
Wow.
I'm hooked. But to counter that, he caught way more fish, and I only caught one other fish. So,
okay.
But the quality was there, and that's what I was looking for, because I fished that creek forever, and I've caught a handful of nice ones, and I just get tired of catching dinks, throwing smaller baits. So I'm like, hey, let's experiment. Let's see what they'll do with this nice size swim bait.
Interesting. So yeah, that makes sense that, when you throw those bigger ones, you are gonna kind of probably limit the number of bites you get, but the bites you do get are probably going to be better quality fish, you would think.
And even if you don't get a bite, if you get a follow, the fish at least show themselves to you. So you could go back to that spot, you could retie on another bait and flip it in there and just kind of put that in the back of your memory and know that big fish holding this specific type of area too.
Right. Or follow up with another bait if you have another rod with you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. So I know watching your videos too, it looked like the kind of the water that you were fishing in that one seemed to be like more of a lake kind of thing. So when you lake fish, are you targeting more largemouth at that point, or do your lakes have smallmouth too?
Our lakes have some smallmouth. I haven't found them quite yet. So when I do go to lakes, I'm primarily bass fishing, or I'll target other species like white bass.
Okay.
Occasionally do some crappie fishing, saugeye, walleye, that kind of stuff.
Okay, interesting. Like when I think of like the lakes near me, they obviously have the crappie and white bass. But when I think of walleye fishing, I think of river fishing. But that's I've never caught a walleye on the lakes. I've caught all the walleye that I've ever caught have come from the river, but maybe I'm just not using the right baits on the lakes because
Lakes are so hard to dissect, man. It's crazy, man. You got to go out there and compete with other big boaters, be conscientious of your surroundings at all times, and you just have so much water to dissect. And hopefully I could do a lot better with that trolling motor now, man. You know what I mean?
yeah, you could definitely get to the place or cover at least more water anyway. So
Yep.
that was a game changer for me when I got pedals because I felt like I could cover so much water. I could pedal to the other side of the lake and I wasn't exhausted when I got there,
I've been dying to try those new pedal kayaks, man, because my Seaghost, I love it. It's great, but it definitely has its flaws. It's not super stable, and it's kind of hard to stand up with. That might be because I have a bit of a beer belly, but I don't know.
Oh, that makes it tough, depending on the kayak, obviously. So I think Ryan, my old co-host, I think that's what he started out with as well. And he recently he bumped up to the Jackson Bite, but for the longest time he had a Seaghost as well. I'm pretty sure that's, if I remember correctly, that's what he had starting out, and he liked it. I mean, it got him out, whatever gets you on the water, first of all, but yeah, he lived in that kayak for a while before he upgraded. So
yeah, the seat's pretty good too. It handles excellent in rapids. Like I've taken it down some sketchy stuff for sure, but it does good. It's treated me well over the years for sure.
cool. And I know. So when you're river fishing, what other techniques do you like to throw, or are you more comfortable shallow or deep water? Or I know at least our rivers around here, there's not much deep water, but
I like it all, man. Just anything that's different, because a lot of times I struggle to find them shallow, but between a put in and a takeout, you're going to have some variables in there. So like I personally, I like rocks, like our rivers around here have a whole bunch of man-made concrete boulders that hold a lot of fish. So I love to throw like a black bitsy bug micro jig, 1/4 ounce. I've been using that thing for years, and it's just a killer of fish, man. Like I could go out there. I don't have to worry about ever getting it snagged. And if I do get it snagged, I can just break it off. It's like a $3 bait or whatever, which is another reason why I got into making my own. So I started making my own jigs and stuff like that, just kind of save some costs and all that stuff. But yeah, the black bitsy bug jig with a TRD bugs trailer or a TRD crawls. But again, I stopped using some of those baits because I started making my own crawdads and stuff, and they're just producing just as well, if not better. That jig is just always going to be in my tackle box. Aside from that, you can't go wrong with a whopper plopper. I mean, there's probably going to be a point in time where fish are hip to our tricks, you know what I mean? But until then, I'm going to keep throwing it. Personally, I like the size 90 whopper plopper. A lot of people throw the natural ones or the bone ones. I don't use those at all, really. I just stick with my loon, the black colored one. I've caught a lot of big smallmouth on that for sure.
That has actually been my best color on the river too, hands down. I've thrown the monkey butt. I threw that a lot, but as soon as I switched to the loon, I started catching fish much more regularly, and I think there's definitely something to that color for sure.
For me, it seems like anything black for jigs or crank or top waters, it just works. They see that contrast, they can pick it out, whether it be muddy water or clear water. I mean, it just flat out works.
Now that's interesting because last year I fell in love with the Ricoh Popper, and the color that I used most was, I think it's called Risque. It's like silver with a little chartreuse on the front and green on the top. And then, but I also, at the same time I bought that one, I bought a black one, a black Ricoh as well, thinking, oh, it's, if the loon works, this is going to work great. I didn't catch fish on it for some reason. I'm like,
It's so weird.
I don't know why this doesn't work. It should work, but I was happy because the other one crushed it. So I never really worried about it. I don't know why it didn't work for me, but yeah, for some reason the Whopper Plopper, the loon worked great, but for the black Ricoh Popper didn't work for me. It's just weird how that, it doesn't make sense.
I probably my next purchase will be that bait, that popper, man, that Ricoh Popper. All these fish pics on social media I see with that little bait hanging out, I'm like, that just makes me want to buy it even more.
and I threw a ton of different poppers, and never really had a ton of success. As soon as I tied that one on, I don't know what's different about it or what makes it, if it's just confidence thing, but holy cow, I just crushed it on that. And then, then I didn't want to take it off. I still have my first one that I got. I kind of retired it towards the end of the season because it was beat to heck. Like, it's not even painted anymore. It's missing an eye, and both of the trebles have missing hooks on them. I didn't swap those out, but I was like, this one served me well. So,
do you just chug it along real slow, or do you burn it a little bit, or how do you work that thing?
I do both. For the most part, I was doing it slow. I was just throwing it out there and just pop, 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 pop. But then I was listening to the Tackle Talk podcast, and they actually had Rick Clunn on, the guy who invented that.
Yeah. And
he was saying that he throws it on a bait caster, first of all, which I don't. I throw it on a spinning rod, and he said, I chug the heck out of that thing. I'm constantly walking the dog, pop, 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 as quick as I can get it. So
that's interesting. Draw those really aggressive fish out real fast.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, I'm going to try that now. It hasn't really been warm enough for me or top water anyway around here. So I'm anxious to try that. I don't know that I'll throw it on a bait caster though. It seems a little light for me to be thrown on a bait caster, but I'll see how it goes on a spinning rod. Maybe if I have luck there, I'll try it on a bait caster. But
yeah, man. The other bait that is probably my favorite bait ever. It's some sort of chatter bait. I started out initially with the standard $6 one. That thing just doesn't chatter right off the gate, and that kind of frustrated me. And plus, the bait keeper on there is garbage. So then I bumped it up to the Project Z. But I was having some troubles with that because I'll throw a half-ounce chatterbait. I don't care how deep it is or how shallow it is. A half-ounce or a 3/8 ounce is what I usually use, but I've definitely caught way more fish on the half-ounce version. But I throw it in the junk, man, because when you're in a kayak, you don't really care about getting snagged because you can just paddle right over there and get it out of there. But the issue I ran into, I was throwing it in some small pond that had a whole bunch of timber. And I would just get snagged and just using 20-pound braid, I would just pop it off. It didn't bend the hook, which was good, but I came back and I was reeling it in and the blade fell off. Like it literally broke the blade. I broke three of them in a matter of 2 weeks. So I'm like, well, this sucks. There's got to be a better one out there. And then I started doing some research and I found out that a brand called Picasso makes a bladed jig called the Shock Blade, I believe.
Yep.
That thing looks mean, dude. And it thumps. It thumps way harder than the chatterbait. The chatterbait has like a really tight wobble, but this one is just like you could feel it on your rod. And then immediately, if you feel it stop chattering, the majority of the time a fish hits it and is running right at you. So I like to use like a higher gear ratio reel so I could burn it in real quick, catch up with the fish and set the hook. Thankfully, I've got a lot of big fish on that. Definitely.
And do you do a half ounce with that as well?
Yep.
With the Picasso lure? Okay.
Yep. I tried the 3/8 ounce. It just doesn't work for me that well. I don't really throw the chatter in shallow areas. Usually I'm like trying to target anything from 3 to 6 feet or a little bit deeper, just because you'll just bump into rock after rock, and the fish, I haven't had any good luck on it in shallow, but hey, never know. Maybe if I switched up to like a 1/4 ounce, I could do better, but 1/2 ounce works really good for me. I don't ever have to untie it to try on another one. Just stick with that. I could throw that thing from the start of the trip to the beginning, or from the beginning to the end. I might catch 3 or 4 fish, but they're usually pretty good quality.
And what kind of trailer do you generally like to use, or do you not use a trailer? What's your preference?
So I started off with the Zaco.
That's what I started off with. Yeah. Well, I lie. I used Kitex at first because I didn't have any, but then everybody kept saying, "Yo, you got to try the Zaco," and I was like, "Okay," and that worked well enough. So that's kind of what I've stuck with. But have you found anything that you like work better?
Well, the problem with the Zaco is the plastic it's made out of. Just like you catch a fish or two on it, and then one big fish jumps up, your lure is shredded, and those baits aren't exactly cheap.
No.
So I went to the razor shads, and I was using that for a couple of years, and it did really well on that. And that's usually what I use the most is that razor shad. But I've been doing a little bit more. I've been using that, 10,000 fish. What is it called? Yodo bug or something like that. The Yodo worm. I think that's what it's called. I haven't caught any fish on it, but it looks pretty in the water, you know. And then I started using the flukes that I started making. I was catching fish on that too. Granted, they don't last that long, but I make them, so I have an infinite supply, so it doesn't matter.
So really, you make all sorts of soft plastic, jigs and hard baits too. That's kind of cool.
Just trying to learn everything, man. Eventually, I want to start like making hair jigs and stuff, because that's a bait on my bucket list to use. I got some doe tails from some of the does I took over the last couple of years. It's just, to me, it's really cool to make a bait from scratch, right?
Using absolutely.
You sourced yourself. You didn't have to go on Amazon necessarily to get it, except for maybe the hooks and the jig mold itself. Other than that, you just do everything yourself. And I don't know, it's pretty rewarding to catch a fish on a bait you made. You know, it just makes that catch even sweeter.
I was just gonna say that's probably the icing on the cake right there, is catching a fish on something that you made from scratch. That's got to be pretty cool.
Eventually, hopefully, I want to build my own lures. You know, carve my own master and make a silicone mold to where I could pour my plastic in, or pour some sort of other resin in and make some hard baits. What I really want to get into is it's like a crankbait but bigger, and they're jointed. So I believe the big swim bait guys call them a crank down. Those things just look beautiful, man. It's just something tantalizing about seeing a fish actually look like a fish when it's swimming. But that's going to be a process of a whole bunch of trial and error.
Oh yeah, no, I've read a lot about, that those are really hard to tune, to get that natural swimming motion down. So, but when they are beautiful when they work though. It's some of the most realistic looking lures I've seen.
One day, eventually, maybe if I could build a bait that's good and it works and I have footage of it, I might be able to make them and sell them. I don't plan on making it a full-time gig. It's just something that I enjoy doing. So might as well try to possibly make some money out of it. But I guess my fear with that is I spend too much time making baits and selling baits and shipping baits that I don't have enough time to enjoy them and actually go fishing. So maybe in the future, I don't know. We'll see.
That can take off quick too, man. Though I've heard plenty of people on, listen to different podcasts and hearing different lure makers, and that's exactly how they got started, just like you. And then, they find, a following, and bam, they're, having trouble keeping up with the demand. So exactly. I could see how it would get out of control fast, but
those things, they aren't cheap either, man. Your average run of the mill homemade bigger swim bait, that's like $60, $100.
Right.
I mean,
Well, even some of the, hand painted crankbaits that I've seen, they go $20-$30 easy.
Oh
So,
yeah.
if you start cranking those out, with any kind of speed or, quantity, you're going to be raking it in, I would think. So
Have to hire a whole team to do all the stuff so I could go out there and go fishing. Sounds
that's
like a
right.
good
That's
plan.
right. Yeah. You guys, take care of that. I'll be out testing the product,
Yep.
perfecting it. Cool though, man. That definitely sounds, sounds like you're kind of a one-stop shop. That's kind of cool. I'm kind of jealous. I definitely would be a bit less cautious if I knew I could replace anything I lost. And it sounds like you're getting close to being there, so.
Trying, man. One of the things that I learned probably just a few years ago is just throw that bait like you don't give a dang about it, man. Because I used to be so scared. That's one of the main reasons I didn't really throw crankbaits, because, when you're younger, a $7 crankbait is a lot of money, but like, you just got to throw it and not give a dang.
Yep. No. And that really, that was a hard lesson for me to learn as well. But when you start, hitting those spots that most people will avoid and that kind of thing, your catches are going to go up that
Absolutely.
much more. And like you said, you kind of got to just forget about, losing lures. Are you going to lose lures occasionally? Yeah, it's going to happen, but
Yep.
your fish catches are going to go way, way up. And like you said, in a kayak, a lot of times you can get those back now. If you hang it in a tree,
Yep.
far enough away, then that can be tough. But I've gotten pretty good at getting them out of trees too. I shouldn't admit that, but
or you could be friends with some really crazy people that are willing to climb that tree for you. You're like, I'll break it off. I know it's a whopper plopper, but I'll break it off. No, man, we got to get it. We got to get it. I'm like, all right, have at it. I got your back if you fall, bro.
I'm going to videotape this while you're up there, just for posterity, if anything.
Yeah, sure. Might as well. I mean, it would make for really good clickbait, right?
I was going to say, and hilarity ensued, exactly. Cool. All right. Anything else you wanted to cover? I mean, you on lakes, what's your go-to? Like if you're fishing deep water, do you drop shot or anything like that? Or
honestly, I'm not really into finesse fishing. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm more of a power fisher for sure, man. I like casting a whole bunch of times, working that bait, covering as much water as possible. But I do want to get into finesse fishing for sure this year, especially since I'm starting to make my own weedless Ned heads and stuff like that. But deeper water, I usually throw a jig or a deep diving crankbait, like deeper water around rocky points and things like that. Secondary points is always a good go-to spot as well. But yeah, I've just caught so many fish on jigs. It's just like one of those things. If I'm not catching anything, I'll throw a jig. And if I throw a jig out deep, especially on places like Dale Hollow, which I'm going to at the end of this month, which should be pretty awesome.
Are you coming to the Paddle and Fin tournament?
Not doing the tournament though. Okay. No, tournaments aren't really my style because like I go fishing to relax. You know what I mean?
I hear you, man.
I've had so many fish flop off on the board. I just would get frustrated. Just throw the board in the water, like, oh.
What time? So when are you coming to Dale Hollow? Because I will actually, the Paddle and Fin crew, and we're having our first tournament of the year down there, April 2nd and 3rd. And so the Paddle and Fin crew will be there probably earlier that week into that weekend. So
I'm going down there March 31st through April 5th.
Okay, yeah. So you, depending where you are, we'll be at Eastport Marina. But yeah, that's cool. So
that's one of the areas I haven't got into. Like the last 3 years that I've been there, we've been focusing on the west side. Caught some decent fish out there. So I'm like, hey, I'm just learning one little section at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of water there. Just, in the little bit that I've actually seen, we kind of fished kind of the river side of it. And, but I know there's, the big lake feel there as well. There's lots of different places you can go. And that's kind of cool that you can get all that in one spot.
Yeah. Last time I was there, we didn't really get on the smallmouth like we wanted, because that place is really tough to fish. I've talked to a lot of locals around there, and they say every third day will be a good day.
Okay.
And every time I've been down there, it's been exactly that. Like, you might catch 1 or 3 in a day. You'll be fishing the morning for 6 hours, and then the evening for another 4 or 5 hours. And it's just really tough to break down, but we're finally starting to figure them out. What I found out last time I was there, and hopefully this information will help the tournament anglers down there. You know, all I did, I initially started off in the coves and stuff like that. Wasn't doing very well. And then I went to point hopping, essentially just hopping from point to point, because there's so many points on that lake. And as soon as I saw this big fallen tree on this point that was right next to main lake access, I threw my chatterbait in there 2 or 3 times. I didn't get anything. My buddy comes in right behind me, throws a spinnerbait, catches a 5-pound largemouth. I'm like, what? That was his PB. So I was just really happy that he got on that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
A quality fish of that size. I want a 5-pound smallie though, man. That's the goal. Hopefully. We'll see though.
No, I'm right there with you. I got my 20.5 inches, my big smallie from last year. Didn't have a scale. But yeah, now I'm looking for to break 21 if I can. So we'll see. I know the Smallie Talk guys are running their Smallie Games thing, so I joined in with that, and they always talk about 23 inches. So that's my ultimate goal, to get into the 23-inch club. But I might have to go to Lake Erie for that or something crazy. So.
Exactly, man. I'm just trying to get into the 20-inch club at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it took me 2 years to find a 20-inch smallie on, but finally broke that last year. And my second fish this year was a 19.5. So I was happy. So I only caught 2 fish so far this year, but I just caught that last weekend. So I was like, heck yeah, I'll start there.
Was that the one on that custom crankbait?
Yep.
That's awesome, man. I love it, dude.
So I'm like, well, maybe I'll have a little bit easier time finding the 20s this year if I know a little bit better. I feel like every year I go out there, I know a little bit more, and my confidence is definitely at a good place right now. So, well, I shouldn't say that, because I just fished January and February with no fish, but the water was pretty much half frozen, and it was definitely a challenge. But I think now that things are finally starting to warm up, we have, of course, snow coming tomorrow, but I think after we get through this week, we should be done with the snow and the coldness, and things should really start lighting up. So I can't wait.
Have you ever thrown an A-rig down there at Dale Hollow?
I've only been there that one time, and I did not. That's something I'll have to bring with me, though. I'm flying down this year, though, so it's whatever tackle I can carry in my bag. So I'm going to be a little bit limited, but
yeah, it's all good, man. I've never personally shipped fishing fishing gear. Like, I'm going to Florida to do some pond hopping because my family wants to do a vacation down in St. Augustine. I'm like, I've already done that. Can I just rent a car and go pond hopping, hopefully throw some big swim baits and stuff like that? But my concern is I'd have to ship my rods.
Yeah.
And I'm really worried about that. But thankfully, Tackle Warehouse ships really good rod tubes. And I got one from the last Dobbins Fury rod that I got. So just curious, how expensive is it going to be, right?
Right.
Right. Got to risk it for the biscuit, man.
That's right. No, I have quite a few rod tubes in my garage as well. My wife's like, why do you keep those? I'm like, hey, you never know.
You never know, man.
But the A-rig is definitely a good idea. I don't have a ton of luck, but I've only I haven't experimented with it too much. Just because I didn't have a rod really that was good enough. Now I just got my first Douglas rod, and it's a heavy, so I'm thinking that's going to be better for that technique, because I did an episode. I've been trying to remember which angler I had on that talked about the A-rig, and he gave me a lot of tips and made me realize that a lot of stuff I was doing was wrong. So I'm anxious to get back out and try that, and I should be trying it right now, because I think around here, as the water's that 40-degree range is good A-rig time, as from what I've heard, but I just haven't thrown it yet this year. So
hopefully you get one, man. Hopefully if you get an A-rig, dude, you catch a big old PB. I want a double hookup, man, for some reason. That's another bucket list thing of mine. Just like catch 2 fish on one lure. That'd be insane.
I was just listening to someone talking about throwing the donkey rig. Do you know, have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't. What's that?
It's like a double fluke rig. So you take you tie your line to a swivel, but you run another swivel through it. So the one swivel will slide down to the other swivel.
Okay.
And then you tie a fluke rig on each. Now the guy I talked to or was listening to about was talking about throwing a Ned rig on that actually, but it was the first time I saw it. And I think traditionally it's more of a fluke rig, like a double fluke rig.
Yeah.
And but he was throwing double Ned rigs on it, and it was working for him. And he was saying he got a lot of doubles. And I'm like, that's interesting. I might have to try that. So
I never even thought about that, man. I've had some crazy ideas, man. Like, I love the fact that A-rigs catch fish. I wonder if it's possible to put a couple, like 3 separate swim baits on the back of a buzz bait. You know what I mean? It'd be interesting. I don't know if it would work well because of all the weight of the other swim baits, but I've heard good stuff about people taking the skirts off the buzz bait and just putting a bigger swim bait or like a 4-inch Kitech or something like that. Like,
yeah, I've even heard of frogs on buzz baits too. You know?
Yeah,
weird stuff like that. And I know like Whopper Plopper, they River to Sea made like almost like a buzz bait plopper. Did you ever see that? It had like 2.
Yeah, 2 on 1. It's like one in front of the other.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Could you imagine catching a fish and it's shaking and then you get 2 Whopper Ploppers stuck in you? Because those hooks are freaking vicious, man.
Oh, yeah. I've seen some vicious Whopper Plopper injuries online, man. And I know it's only a matter of time of not if or when. It's more when, because it's going to happen. You know, I've had a couple of close calls, but I keep a pair of diagonal cutters in my kayak just for when that does happen. I want to be ready. But yeah, craziness. Cool, man. I'm trying to think. I know I want to give you a chance to shout out where the folks can find you, because for sure you got a lot of good content out there. So I guess we can jump into that. So your social media and your YouTube, what's the best place for people to look you up?
I'd say YouTube or Instagram. I don't really post a whole bunch of stuff on Instagram, but I'm looking forward to doing that more so this year, because like when you're doing the whole social media thing and the YouTube thing, it's important to do all aspects of social media, you know. But G2G Fishing on YouTube, or if you search G2 Fishing on Instagram, you should be able to find me.
Cool. And any other plans for the channel? Like any other different kind of videos you're going to be doing? I mean, I love all the stuff that I've seen so far. It's informational, like the videos you do where you break down kind of how you're throwing the different things, and that's exactly the content that I like watching. You know, not that I don't enjoy watching people catch fish and stuff like that, but I love learning how other people work lures, because that to me is you know, and firsthand seeing it and have someone break it down. That's really how I learn best, you know, short of having someone right next to me on the water saying, hey, do this, don't do that, you know.
What I'd like to do with the videos is break it down even more, because like not everybody that is watching it knows as much as I do. A lot of them obviously know a lot more, but I think the target audience would be people that hardly know that much about it. You know what I mean? So I think if I break down each catch after the catch, exactly what I'm doing, why I was doing, I think that would be really extremely helpful for the people that are watching it, for sure.
No, and that's kind of the whole point of my show on this, on Paddle and Fin, is to target those kind of things and to ask those questions that people kind of gloss over. Like, you know, when you hear someone say, oh, I was ledge fishing, and, you know, they'll be like, oh yeah, you know, ledge fishing. But then I'm sure there's people in the audience or out there who are like, I don't know what ledge fishing is. What do you mean when you say ledge fishing? And that's exactly, you know, if you can break down those terms and, you know, the techniques down to those basic levels, where if you have never seen it before, you might not know those things. And, you know, a lot of content creators, I think, take that for granted. So I think there's definitely a place for those kind of videos out there.
And some of the stuff I'll learn it on the fly. Like I like trying new things. So I might not necessarily sound exactly what I know what I'm talking about, but I'm figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like fishing, the one thing I like about it is you're constantly evolving and learning plenty of new stuff and just keeping it in the back of keeping it as a bag of tricks, you know, just to try other stuff later. You know, ledge fishing, like you mentioned, I've never fished ledges because I've never really been out on boats, bass fishing on big bodies of waters that actually had ledges. But Dale Hollow has ledges. So I might be targeting that a little bit too.
No, that's cool. And then like you said, I think, you know, that as you, especially if you learn yourself, you're going to gain so much more confidence knowing that you started with a technique that you maybe didn't know, and you learned the ins and outs of it to the point where you got proficient with it. And, you know, that's just going to be a building block for, you know, oh, okay, well now I'm not afraid to pick up this other new lure that I just heard about or technique and try it and, you know, take the time to get good with it. And then you're just going to build your arsenal of different tools that you can use and the on the water experience that when you go to a new place, so you can apply the lessons that you learned from other similar places. You know, okay, well, you know, I caught these on wood cover here, and, you know, this lake has a lot of wood cover, or, you know, there's a lot of this structure that I'm used to. So, you know, that's definitely how you become a well-rounded angler, I think.
Exactly. I'm also going to look to target some different species because I hooked into some hybrid stripers over the last year, and man, do those things fight. They're few and far between up here, so I might have to travel down south of where I'm at a little bit to target those things, but I'm just trying to go out there and have fun and hopefully teach people some stuff.
That sounds like a plan, man. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, you know, having fun and helping other people get into this, you know, great pastime that we both love, obviously. So
absolutely
cool, man. Any other closing words, any sponsors or anything that you want to shout out?
No sponsors really. I got like a partnership deal with Bioino Power. They have I'm not going to say their batteries are the greatest because I've only used the one battery, but so far that thing works like a charm. It's not died on me yet, knock on wood.
No, we definitely have some folks on the podcast that are big Bioino Power fans, and you know, I think they make a great product. So for sure, they're definitely guys. Check out Bioino Power if you can spell it, but I will include that in the show notes. But yeah, man, great talking to you. I think you know, I'll definitely have to have you come back on and pick your brain about some of these other topics as I, you know, watch your videos more and more. And you know, if you get into, you know, actually get to a point where you want to, you know, kind of start endorsing your homemade products, you know, let me know and we can, you know, have you back on and talk about that a little bit more.
Absolutely, man. And if you ever need a fishing friend, you need me to come up and visit and hang out, I'm down. Cause like, I want to do a lot more out of state trips just to kind of spice things up. You know what I mean?
Well, if you ever want to come to the Susquehanna, I got a spare bedroom and it's 15 minutes away. So awesome.
I've been dying to fish that, man.
It's a beautiful place. It's overwhelming when you first look at it, but it's an amazing place. I'm super blessed to live as close as I do because I'm pretty spoiled. But all right, Matt. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Just a couple of things, guys. Remember the Paddle and Fin meetup, April 2nd and 3rd. It's on Tourney X if you want to check that out. Most of the Paddle and Fin hosts will be down there at Dale Hollow. And also, if you're interested in checking out the kayak fantasy fishing game, go to paddleandfin.com/fantasy and check that out. Build your own team, compete against a bunch of the other Paddle and Fin hosts and a bunch of people around the country. My team is sucking really bad, but there's definitely people who are doing really good. And so if you want to try that out, it's free and we have lots of good prizes. So check that out. Anything else you wanted to highlight, Matt, before we hop off?
Nope, I'm good to go, buddy. Thank you very much.
Awesome, man. Well, I hope to someday, you know, join you on the water. But until then, I'm going to be checking out all your content. Keep up the great work. And Guys, this has been Bass Fishing for Noobs here on the Paddle and Fin podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the the tricks and the tips to help you rip more lips. So have a good night, guys. Thanks, Matt.
See you, buddy.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You could support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.